Naomi Reed massaged her temples as she stared at the medical reports scattered across her desk. The artificial lighting in the medical bay of Nexus Station always seemed too harsh after 18 straight hours on duty. As the only human field medic specializing in xenobiology in this sector of space, her expertise was in constant demand. Just one more hour, she murmured to herself, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. The chronometer on her wall displayed 23:37 in glowing blue numbers, deep into the station's night cycle. The soft chime of her office door broke her concentration. She wasn't expecting any patients this late, but emergencies didn't adhere to schedules, especially on an interspecies way station like Nexus. "Enter," she called, straightening her rumpled medical tunic. The door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a tall, slender figure backlit by the corridor lights. Naomi's breath caught in her throat. An Australian woman stood in the doorway, her luminescent violet skin casting gentle patterns of light across the floor. Her eyes, deep pools of magenta with no discernible pupils, focused intently on Naomi. "Medical Officer Reed?" The Australian's voice had the characteristic musical quality of her species, each word flowing like water over river stones. "Yes, that's me," Naomi replied, rising from her chair. "I'm sorry, but clinic hours ended at." "I know." The Australian stepped inside, the door closing behind her. "My name is Thelia. I've traveled 3 systems to find you." Something in the woman's voice, desperation masked by determination, made Naomi pause. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Please, sit. How can I help you?" Thelia remained standing, her tall frame almost brushing the ceiling panels. "It's my son, Jasper. He's dying." The bluntness of the statement hung in the air between them. Naomi had delivered and received bad news countless times in her career, but there was something raw in this mother's tone that pierced her professional detachment. "I'm sorry to hear that," Naomi said gently. "What condition does he have?" "Stellar atrophy. The Australian healers call it fading star syndrome." Thelia's luminescence dimmed slightly, a physiological response to emotional distress in her species. "It's rare, even among our kind. His internal light is slowly dying." Naomi frowned. She'd studied Australian physiology. Their bodies contained bioluminescent cells that function similarly to human mitochondria but with properties more akin to stars than biological matter. A dysfunction in that system would be catastrophic. "Has he been treated with photonic transfusions? Resonance therapy?" "Everything available in Australian medicine," Thelia replied, finally sinking into the offered chair. "Nothing works. The treatments slow the progression but cannot stop it." Naomi pulled up her terminal, fingers flying across the holographic interface. "I'm not sure what I can offer that your specialists haven't already tried. Australian medicine is quite advanced in bioluminescent disorders. You're the only human to have successfully treated a case of cross-species luminescence transfer," Thelia said, leaning forward. "The procedure you performed on the Luminar ambassador 3 years ago." Naomi's fingers paused over the keyboard. "How do you know about that?" "Those records are classified." "I have resources," Thelia said vaguely. "And desperate mothers become resourceful." Something about the way she said it made Naomi uneasy. "That procedure was experimental, dangerous, and only partially successful. The ambassador's physiology is nothing like an Australian's. But the principle is the same," Thelia insisted. "You found a way to stabilize failing light with external resonance patterns." She reached into a pouch at her waist and placed a small crystal on the desk. It pulsed with a weak violet light. "This contains my son's medical records, and my offer." "Offer?" Naomi asked, not touching the crystal. Thelia's eyes locked with hers, intense and unwavering. "I'll do literally anything if you help my son." The weight of those words, and the implications behind them, settled in the room like a physical presence. Naomi had heard desperate pleas before, but there was something different in Thelia's voice, something that suggested boundaries she was willing to cross. Mrs. Just Thelia, she corrected. I have no mate bond designation. Thelia, Naomi began again, choosing her words carefully. I understand your desperation, but I'm bound by medical ethics. Any treatment would need to follow proper protocols, with no external considerations. A faint smile touched Thelia's lips. Of course. I meant only that I have resources. Knowledge. Access to Australia biological samples that your scientific community would value highly. She paused, her luminescence fluctuating slightly. And yes, personal gratitude that would know no bounds. Naomi picked up the crystal, turning it in her fingers. The light pulsed in rhythm with her touch, almost like a heartbeat. How old is your son? 8 orbital cycles. Young, even by human standards. Too young. Naomi felt a tightness in her chest. Whatever ethical quandaries Thelia's veiled suggestions raised, there was a child involved, a child whose light was literally fading. I'll review his case, Naomi said finally. That's all I can promise for now. Relief washed over Thelia's features, her skin brightening subtly. Thank you. That's more than others have offered. Come back tomorrow at 0900. Bring Jasper. Naomi slid the crystal into her station's reader. I'll need to examine him myself. Thelia stood, towering gracefully. You won't regret this, Medical Officer Reed. After Thelia left, Naomi found herself staring at the data streaming across her screen. The boy's condition was even worse than his mother had described. His internal luminescence was decaying at an accelerated rate, with maybe 3 months left before total failure. The Australia treatments had been thorough but ultimately ineffective. Naomi sighed, rubbing her eyes. She should go to her quarters, get some sleep before tackling this in the morning. Instead, she pulled up her classified research on luminescence transfer and began reading. Hours slipped by unnoticed. At 0638, as the station's lighting cycled to simulate dawn, Naomi finally had the outline of an idea. It was risky, unprecedented, and would require resources she didn't have access to. She'd need help, specifically from the station's chief engineer, whose particle resonance expertise might be adaptable to biological systems. As if summoned by her thoughts, her communicator chimed with a message from station administration. Medical Officer Reed, Engineer Owen Wallace arriving 0800 to discuss equipment maintenance. Please make time in your schedule. Naomi smiled faintly at the coincidence. Perhaps the universe was conspiring to help her help Jasper after all. She glanced at the slowly rotating holographic image of the Australia boy now projected above her desk. His light was noticeably dimmer than it should be, flickering like a star in its final phases. In the corner of the image stood Thelia, one hand protectively on her son's shoulder, eyes filled with the fierce devotion only a parent could know. I'll try, Naomi whispered to the image. I promise I'll try. What she didn't acknowledge, not even to herself, was how those magenta eyes had affected her, or why the promise felt so personally important. Or why, when Thelia had said anything, a part of Naomi had briefly, unprofessionally, wondered exactly what that might entail. Owen Wallace arrived at the medical bay precisely at 0800, toolkit in hand and eyes bleary from pulling an all-night shift upgrading the station's particle accelerator. Tall and lanky with perpetually tousled dark hair, the chief engineer wore the standard Navy uniform of Nexus Station technical staff, though his was invariably stained with various mechanical fluids. Morning, Doc, he said, offering a crooked smile that didn't quite reach his tired eyes. Administration says you've got equipment issues? Naomi glanced up from her terminal, where Jasper's medical data still rotated in holographic detail. Actually, I requested you specifically, but I didn't want to raise flags in the system. Owen's eyebrows rose as he set down his toolkit. Sounds mysterious. And potentially against regulations. Potentially, she agreed, gesturing for him to come closer. What do you know about biological luminescence conversion? Enough to know it's not my field, he replied, but stepped forward to examine the hologram. His expression shifted from professional detachment to genuine interest as he studied the data. This is an Australian child. His name is Jasper. 8 years old, suffering from stellar atrophy. Owen whistled softly. Poor kid. Their bodies are practically walking stars, beautiful, but complicated when things go wrong. He peered closer at the readings. His resonance pattern is decaying rapidly. 3 months, maybe less. Naomi nodded, impressed despite herself. Owen had always been sharp, but his quick assessment of alien physiology suggested depth beyond his engineering focus. I've been working on a treatment theory, she said, pulling up additional schematics. But I need your help with the delivery system. Why me specifically? Owen asked, though his fingers were already manipulating the holographic interface, expanding sections of the data. Because 3 years ago, you helped calibrate the resonance chamber for the Luminar ambassador's treatment. Unofficial, off-the-record help. Owen's hands stilled. That was classified. So I've been reminded, Naomi said with a faint smile. But I need that expertise again. Before Owen could respond, the door chimed. Naomi checked the time, 0859. Punctuality was apparently an Australian trait. Enter, she called. The door slid open to reveal Thelia, looking even more striking in daylight cycle. Her violet skin seemed to absorb the medical bay's harsh illumination and transform it into something softer, more ethereal. Beside her stood a small figure, Jasper, Naomi presumed. The boy was a miniature version of his mother, though his luminescence was noticeably dimmer. Where Thelia's skin glowed with vibrant violet light, his was a pale lavender, flickering irregularly like a failing light bulb. His eyes, large, innocent, and the same magenta as his mother's, darted around the room with unmistakable curiosity despite his condition. Medical Officer Reed, Thelia inclined her head in greeting. I hope we're not interrupting. Not at all, Naomi said, gesturing them inside. This is Owen Wallace, our chief engineer. He'll be assisting with Jasper's case. Owen crouched down to the boy's eye level, a friendly smile warming his features. Hello there, Jasper. I hear you've got stars inside you. The boy's eyes widened slightly. They're dying, he said matter-of-factly, his voice high and musical like his mother's but with a childish lilt. Well, Owen replied without missing a beat, I happen to be very good at fixing things that are broken. Jasper considered this seriously. Can you fix stars? Never tried before, Owen admitted. But there's a first time for everything. Naomi watched the interaction with interest. She'd never seen Owen with children before, he handled the boy's direct questions with surprising ease. Jasper, Naomi said gently, I need to examine you. Would that be okay? The boy looked to his mother, who nodded encouragingly. What followed was an hour of comprehensive scans, tissue samples, and resonance tests. Jasper endured it all with remarkable patience, answering Naomi's questions about his symptoms with the precise vocabulary of a child who had spent too much time in medical facilities. Does it hurt? Naomi asked as she measured the fluctuations in his bioluminescence. Sometimes, Jasper admitted. Like stars exploding in my chest. Thelia's expression tightened at her son's words, her own luminescence dimming momentarily. Owen, meanwhile, had commandeered a workstation and was deep in calculations, occasionally muttering to himself as he worked through equations. When Naomi completed her examination, he beckoned her over while Thelia distracted Jasper with a small puzzle cube she'd produced from her pocket. I think I see what you're getting at, Owen said in a low voice, showing her his work. You want to create an external resonance field that synchronizes with his failing pattern, effectively jump-starting it back to stability. Similar to the Luminar procedure, Naomi agreed, but more sustained. His condition is systemic, not localized. The issue, Owen continued, is power. We'd need a continuous field at precisely the right frequency, strong enough to penetrate cellular barriers but gentle enough not to overwhelm his system. Could we modify the station's medical resonator? Owen shook his head. Too crude. We need something. He paused, his expression shifting as a thought struck him. Actually, there might be a way. The particle accelerator I've been upgrading, its harmonics could be recalibrated to match biological frequencies. That's a research-grade piece of equipment, Naomi said dubiously. How would we get authorization? A smile played at the corner of Owen's mouth. Who said anything about authorization? Across the room, Jasper laughed at something his mother said, the sound like tinkling crystals. Both Naomi and Owen turned at the sound, struck by its simple joy. We need to help him, Naomi whispered. We will, Owen replied, his expression determined. Meet me in Lab 7 at 0200 tomorrow. Bring them both. After Owen left to make preparations, Naomi explained the provisional treatment plan to Thelia while Jasper rested on the examination table, his energy visibly depleted by the tests. It's experimental, Naomi cautioned. And technically not sanctioned by station protocols. Thelia's eyes, which had been fixed on her son, shifted to Naomi's face. You're risking your position here. It's what any doctor would do, Naomi said, though they both knew that wasn't entirely true. No, Thelia said softly. It's what someone with compassion does. Her hand brushed against Naomi's, the touch sending an unexpected thrill up the doctor's arm. Australia's skin was cooler than human skin, but it carried a subtle electric charge that tingled pleasantly. I meant what I said yesterday, Thelia continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. Anything, Naomi. My gratitude has no limits. The way she said Naomi's name, caressing each syllable, made the doctor's pulse quicken. Their eyes locked, and Naomi found herself momentarily lost in those magenta depths. There was gratitude there, yes, but something else too, something that transcended the doctor-patient relationship. Naomi gently withdrew her hand, forcing herself to remember her professional responsibilities. The best thanks you can give me is to follow the treatment plan precisely. Starting with allowing Jasper to rest here until tomorrow. His condition isn't stable enough for travel. Thelia nodded, seemingly unperturbed by Naomi's professional retreat. Of course, doctor. Whatever you think is best. Later that night, after settling Jasper in a recovery room with monitoring equipment, Naomi found Thelia standing by the large observation window in the medical bay's small lounge area. The stars beyond the glass shone brilliantly against the void, no atmosphere to dim their light. He's finally sleeping, Naomi said, joining her at the window. The sedative should keep him comfortable until morning. Thelia didn't immediately respond, her gaze fixed on the distant stars. Our ancestors believed we were born from stars, she said finally. That the light within us is a fragment of cosmic fire, entrusted to our care. She turned to Naomi, her expression vulnerable. What kind of mother fails to keep her child's light burning? Without thinking, Naomi reached out, taking Thelia's hand in hers. You haven't failed. You've crossed 3 systems to find help. That's not failure, that's devotion. Thelia's fingers intertwined with Naomi's, the contact more deliberate this time. On my world, such devotion is expected of mothers. What I did not expect was to find it in a human doctor. Her free hand rose, hovering near Naomi's cheek without quite touching it. There is light in you too, Naomi read. Different from ours, but no less bright. The moment hung between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. Naomi knew she should step away, establish professional distance, but found herself leaning slightly into Thelia's almost touch instead. The medical bay's comm system crackled to life, shattering the moment. Dr. Reed, Owen's voice came through, I've got the preliminary calibrations done. Could use your eyes on the biological parameters. Naomi stepped back, an unexpected mix of relief and disappointment washing over her. I'll be right there, she replied to the comm. To Thelia, she said more formally, you should rest too. There's a cot in Jasper's room. Tomorrow will be challenging. Thelia inclined her head, but her eyes held Naomi's a beat longer than necessary. Until tomorrow, then. As Naomi walked toward Lab 7 to meet Owen, she tried to focus her thoughts on the treatment protocol, on the particle resonance calculations, on anything other than the lingering sensation of Thelia's cool fingers against her skin and the unexplored depths of those magenta eyes. Owen was waiting with schematics and equations, but he paused when he saw her expression. "Everything okay, Doc?" "Fine," she said, perhaps too quickly. "Let's focus on saving Jasper's light." "Right," Owen replied, giving her a curious look but mercifully not pressing further. "Let's build a star machine." As they worked through the night, Naomi kept telling herself that her dedication was purely professional, what any good doctor would do for a patient. But in the quiet moments between calculations, when her mind wandered to Thelia's luminescent beauty and fierce maternal love, she knew she was crossing boundaries that had nothing to do with station regulations. And strangest of all, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. The first treatment session was scheduled for 0300, deep into Nexus Station's night cycle when minimal personnel would be present to question why the particle accelerator had been repurposed for medical use. Naomi arrived at Lab 7 to find Owen making final adjustments to a hastily constructed chamber that bore little resemblance to standard medical equipment. "Will it work?" she asked, examining the tangle of wires and modified components. Owen glanced up, dark circles under his eyes betraying his exhaustion. "Theoretically. I've synchronized the resonance field to match Jasper's baseline luminescence pattern." He tapped a display showing oscillating wavelengths. "The accelerator will provide the power, and this chamber will focus it into a form his body can absorb." "And the risks?" "Numerous," a new voice interjected from the doorway. Naomi turned to find Valeria Desai standing in the entrance, arms crossed over her chest. The station's diplomatic officer was known for her striking appearance, tall and elegant with deep brown skin, sharp cheekbones, and a perpetual expression of knowing more than she revealed. Her charcoal gray diplomatic corps uniform was impeccable even at this early hour. "Officer Desai," Naomi said carefully. "This is an unscheduled treatment. An unauthorized experiment using station research equipment to treat an unregistered alien patient," Valeria corrected, stepping into the lab. "I'm aware." Owen's hand moved subtly toward the emergency shutdown protocol on his console. "How did you find out?" A small smile played at the corners of Valeria's lips. "It's my job to know when someone accesses restricted systems." Her dark eyes scanned the makeshift treatment chamber. "Particularly when those systems could potentially create a diplomatic incident with the Australia Collective." Naomi felt her stomach sink. "Are you here to shut us down?" "If I wanted to shut you down, I would have brought security," Valeria replied, moving closer to inspect the equipment. "I'm here because treating an Australia child with experimental technology has implications beyond medicine." "He's dying," Naomi said simply. Valeria's expression softened slightly. "I know. I've reviewed his file." She picked up a calibration tool and made a minor adjustment to one of the scanner arrays. "Your settings were off by 3 microns. Owen blinked in surprise. "You understand particle resonance technology?" "I understand many things, Engineer Wallace. Including the fact that helping this child could either improve our relations with the Australia or damage them irreparably if something goes wrong." She set down the tool with precision. "That's why I'm here to ensure nothing goes wrong." Before either Naomi or Owen could respond, the lab door opened again. Thelia entered, carrying Jasper in her arms. The boy looked even paler than before, his luminescence flickering weakly. Valeria immediately straightened, hands clasped behind her back, and inclined her head in a formal gesture. "Nas terra vec luminar," she said in flawless Australia. Thelia's eyes widened in surprise. "Luminar vec solari," she responded, completing what appeared to be a ritual greeting. "I didn't expect to find someone fluent in our tongue here." "Diplomatic Officer Valeria Desai," she introduced herself. "I've spent time in the collective central systems." Thelia's eyes narrowed slightly. "And you're here because?" To help, Valeria said simply. And to observe. Naomi stepped forward, refocusing on Jasper. How is he? Weaker, Thelia replied, her own light dimming with worry. He couldn't walk from the medical bay. Naomi gestured to the chamber. We're ready to begin the first treatment. It may be uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be painful. As Owen and Naomi prepared Jasper for the procedure, Valeria drew Thelia aside, speaking in low tones. Though Naomi couldn't understand the Australi language they occasionally slipped into, the diplomatic officer's expression suggested she was explaining the process and perhaps offering reassurances. Finally, Jasper was positioned within the chamber, looking impossibly small amid the technological apparatus. Naomi attached monitoring sensors to his chest and forehead, offering a reassuring smile. These will let us see how your stars are responding, she explained. Jasper nodded solemnly. Will I be brighter after? That's the plan, Naomi said, squeezing his hand gently before stepping back. When the chamber sealed, Thelia pressed a hand against the transparent panel, her eyes never leaving her son. Jasper placed his palm against hers from the inside, their hands separated only by the thin barrier. Beginning resonance sequence, Owen announced, his fingers dancing across the control panel. Starting at 10% capacity. The chamber began to hum, a soft blue light suffusing the interior. On the monitors, Jasper's vital signs remained stable as the particle stream interacted with his bioluminescent cells. 15%, Owen continued, gradually increasing the power. Jasper's eyes widened as the blue light intensified, merging with his own pale lavender glow. His expression wasn't fearful but wondering, as though witnessing something beautiful. Look, he whispered, loud enough for them to hear through the intercom. Stars. The monitoring equipment began registering changes, subtle at first, then more pronounced. Jasper's cellular luminescence was responding to the treatment, absorbing the artificial resonance. 25%, Owen called out. This is the threshold we calculated. On the screens, Jasper's luminescence readings began to stabilize, the erratic patterns smoothing into more regular waves. His skin visibly brightened, the pale lavender deepening toward his mother's vibrant violet. It's working, Naomi whispered, hardly daring to believe it. Valeria moved to stand beside her, studying the readings. His quantum signature is harmonizing with the field. How do you know about quantum signatures? Naomi asked. A ghost of a smile played across Valeria's lips. I told you, I understand many things. The treatment continued for 30 minutes, the chamber bathing Jasper in the precisely calibrated resonance field. When they finally powered down and opened the chamber, everyone held their breath. Jasper stepped out on his own, his skin glowing with renewed strength. Not as bright as a healthy Australi child should be, but significantly improved from before. Mom, he exclaimed, reaching for Thelia. I can feel them again, the stars inside. Thelia enveloped him in an embrace, her own luminescence pulsing with joy. Over her son's head, her eyes met Naomi's, filled with a gratitude so profound it made the doctor's heart stutter. The effect won't be permanent, Owen cautioned, reviewing the post-treatment data. Based on these readings, I'd estimate we've bought him maybe 2 weeks before the decay process resumes. Then we do it again, Naomi said firmly. Regular treatments while we work on a more permanent solution. Valeria cleared her throat. There's a complication. When everyone turned to her, she continued, the Australi High Council has issued an official inquiry about Thelia and Jasper's whereabouts. Apparently, they left the collective without proper authorization for medical treatment. Thelia's expression hardened. The council denied my petition for off-world treatment 3 times. They insisted traditional methods were the only acceptable approach, despite their failure. Her arms tightened around Jasper. I had no choice. I understand, Valeria said, her tone surprisingly sympathetic. But this creates a diplomatic situation. The collective could demand your return and file formal charges against Nexus Station for harboring fugitives. Fugitives? Naomi echoed incredulously. They're refugees seeking medical assistance. Semantics, Valeria replied with a small shrug. What matters is how it's framed to the council. Owen, who had been quietly monitoring Jasper's vital signs, looked up. And how do you suggest we frame it, Officer Desai? A calculating look crossed Valeria's face. As a cultural exchange initiative. A joint research program studying cross-species luminescent stabilization techniques. She turned to Thelia. Your background in stellar cartography could provide cover. You're here as a visiting specialist assisting with navigation system calibrations. Naomi stared at her. You've already thought this through. Of course, Valeria said. It's my job to anticipate diplomatic challenges and resolve them before they become crises. Why would you help us? Thelia asked, suspicion evident in her voice. Valeria's expression softened slightly. Contrary to popular belief, diplomats aren't heartless bureaucrats. We just operate under different constraints. She nodded toward Jasper. No child should be denied treatment because of cultural rigidity, Australia or otherwise. With Jasper stabilized for the moment, they developed a plan. Valeria would register Thelia as a visiting specialist and Jasper as part of a cultural immersion program. This would give them legal status on the station while buying time for continued treatments. As dawn cycle approached, Owen took Jasper to the medical bay for monitoring, with Valeria accompanying them to begin the necessary documentation process. This left Naomi and Thelia alone in the lab, surrounded by the equipment that had just given Jasper a reprieve. I don't know how to thank you, Thelia said softly, moving closer to Naomi. Seeing him walk out of that chamber was thanks enough, Naomi replied, though her pulse quickened as Thelia approached. In Australi culture, we believe that when someone saves a life, their souls become eternally connected, Thelia continued, now standing directly before Naomi. You've saved my son, the most precious light in my universe. Her hand rose to Naomi's face, this time making contact, cool fingers tracing the curve of her cheek. Unlike their previous almost touch, there was nothing hesitant in the gesture now. Thelia, Naomi whispered, knowing she should maintain professional distance but finding herself unable to step away. I'm your son's doctor. You're more than that, Thelia murmured. You risked your position, broke regulations, all to help a child you'd never met. Her fingers trailed down to Naomi's neck, leaving tingling sensations in their wake. Such compassion is rare in any species. Naomi's hands seemed to move of their own accord, rising to rest on Thelia's waist. The Australia's body radiated a subtle warmth that contradicted her cool touch. This is... Naomi started, but couldn't find the words to finish. Complicated? Thelia supplied, a small smile playing on her lips. Cross-species relationships often are. The word relationship sent a jolt through Naomi's system. Is that what this was becoming? What it already was? Before she could formulate a response, Thelia leaned forward, closing the distance between them. Their lips met, and Naomi's world contracted to a single point of contact. Kissing in Australia was unlike anything she'd experienced before. Thelia's lips were cool but carried that same electrical tingle as her touch, sending pleasant shocks through Naomi's nervous system. When they finally parted, Naomi found herself slightly breathless. That was a traditional Australia expression of gratitude, Thelia said with a mischievous glint in her eyes. Naomi couldn't help but laugh. Somehow I doubt that. Perhaps not traditional, Thelia conceded, her fingers now entwined with Naomi's. But sincere nonetheless. A comfortable silence fell between them, filled with unspoken possibilities and complicated questions. Naomi knew there were ethical considerations, cultural barriers, and logistical challenges ahead. Jasper's condition remained serious despite today's success. The Australia Council could still cause problems. Her professional standing could be compromised. And yet, as Thelia's luminescence pulsed in harmony with her heartbeat, Naomi found herself caring less about those complications and more about the connection forming between them, a connection as unexpected as it was profound. "We should check on Jasper," she said finally, though she made no move to step away. "Yes," Thelia agreed, equally stationary. "In a moment." Their eyes locked, an entire conversation passing without words. Whatever was happening between them was neither simple nor conventional, but in that moment, on a space station suspended between worlds, conventional seemed far less important than the light they'd managed to save, and the light they'd unexpectedly found in each other. As the station's lighting shifted to simulate sunrise, casting golden hues across the lab, Naomi made a decision. She leaned forward, initiating a second kiss, this one deeper, more deliberate. That, she said when they parted, was a human expression of something a bit more than gratitude. Thelia's luminescence brightened visibly, her entire being seeming to glow with joy. "I look forward to learning more about human expressions," she replied, her voice carrying a promise of discoveries yet to come. Hand in hand, they left the lab to join the others, stepping not just into the artificial dawn but into the uncharted territory of their newfound connection, a connection as vast and mysterious as the cosmos itself, yet as intimate as the light they both now carried within.